Hi guys, welcome back to RUE MORGUE TV. I'm executive editor Andrea Subisati, and I just want to remind you of the savings you can have if you subscribe to RUE MORGUE magazine as opposed to buying it off the newsstand. Not only will you get your magazines delivered straight to your door, often before the street date, but you save money. You save 25% at least, and if you buy a 12-issue, 2-year subscription, you're looking at 3 free issues. So it's a great way to ensure that you get every issue. We just sold out of a couple recently, and subscribers are always going to get theirs and are often going to get theirs first, so don't forget to subscribe. And while you're at it, subscribe to RUE MORGUE TV. We'll see you next time.
Hi, you're watching Versus on RUE MORGUE TV. To my right, the beautiful Alexandra West, co-host of the Faculty of Horror podcast and author of multiple titles on... I'll start from author. What's your 90s horror full title? I can't believe I can't remember it.
I don't even think I can remember it.
She's also the author of books on the New French Extremity and 90s horror from McFarlane Publications.
And this is Alison Lang, author of Women with Guts in the RUE MORGUE Library and Music Men Ruin For Me. And we are here to fight each other. What is the best horror sequel? What? What could it be? Well, I'll tell you. It's Evil Dead 2, Dead by Dawn.
Incorrect.
What? Okay, well, look.
It's Exorcist III.
We have kind of decided that these are the best 2 sequels. We know there are a lot of horror sequels out there. We know there are so many sequels in general out there. So, so we don't get into the place of arguing, what's better, Sister Act 2 or The Conjuring 2.
So when we were planning this debate video, we realized there's surprising similarities between Evil Dead 2 and The Exorcist III, despite the fact on paper they seem like incredibly different movies.
One is good, one is bad.
One is awesome. So the 3 topics we're going to battle it out with, round 1, best mythology, round 2, best possession, and round 3, best cleft chin, or butt chin, as it is known in some circles. Round 1, best mythology.
Mythology is kind of what makes up the basis of a film. They're particularly important to horror films. They kind of set the ground rules for what happens within them. Now, I'm obviously biased towards Evil Dead 2 because I just enjoy that film so much, but I actually think it has a really great mythology because it's all bound up within one book, and that is the Necronomicon Ex Mortis, or the Book of the Dead. And that is actually based on a real thing, a real book called the Codex Gigas. So there is a kind of actual history for this kind of thing, but it is a book bound in human flesh, inked in human blood. And basically, the book can open this portal to demons, and all kinds of demons, demons that will possess you, trees that will rape you, all kinds of shit that will happen in this world. But the book also has the answer. It has a couple words you say at the end to close it. And I actually think it's a really beautiful way to have something that opens everything, a big arena to play in terms of what they do within this film, and they do so much within this film. The demons are malevolent, they're mischievous, they're funny, they're fucked up, they're sick. I can go on and on. They certainly just don't sit in a mental institution for the whole movie.
So Exorcist III was originally a novel called Legion by William Peter Blatty. Prior to Legion being published in 1983, he wanted to make this book the actual sequel to The Exorcist once it dominated the box office, blah, blah, blah. He tried to collaborate on this with William Friedkin. They butted heads and had like a bitch fight. And so they went like this. This is actual footage of them fighting, just going like this. And so William Peter Blatty said, fuck all y'all, I'm gonna write a book, and it sold a bunch of copies.
That'll show him a book.
So Morgan Creek came a-calling and said, oh, we would like to buy this book, and we'd like to make a movie, and I guess you can direct it. And William Peter Blatty was like, fuck yes, I'm going to direct this movie. It is going to be called Legion, and it will be sort of a sequel to The Exorcist, continuing, you know, in the timeline where The Exorcist II never happened. So the mythology of the film is that it takes place 17 years after the original Exorcist, but in fact, it kind of takes place immediately after the events of the first film. After Father Karras takes his ill-fated little stumble down that long flight of stairs, Exorcist III posits that the ghost of a recently executed serial killer, the Gemini killer, possessed Father Karras' body. So he was picked up by a nearby mental hospital and imprisoned there in a catatonic state for basically 17 years. Meanwhile, in the outside world, all of Father Karras' buddies, including in particular Lieutenant Kinderman and Father Dyer, are mourning his death and grieving him every year on the anniversary of his death. And then murders start to happen. And these murders are, again, they follow sort of the thematic elements of the first film. They're deeply blasphemous, they're extremely violent, and they're all sort of some sort of desecration of the church. So Lieutenant Kinderman starts investigating these elements and realizes eventually that Father Karras, this patient that strongly resembles Father Karras, is hiding in this cell and has been reanimated by the Gemini killer. The Gemini killer, Father Karras, character is played alternately by Jason Miller and Brad Dourif, and that is part of Morgan Creek's interference with the film. The character was originally just Brad Dourif, and they decided they wanted to bring back a familiar character from the first Exorcist, so they brought Jason Miller in to play this patient. The fact that this film was so Frankenstein together, the fact that there's so many disparate elements patchworked together, and yet the mythology comes through so clearly from the first film and still feels credible and strong, even leading to that Frankenstein exorcist scene at the end of the movie, I think stands to reason that this sequel is extremely powerful and withstands even, you know, the most heavy-handed studio interference.
Mythology is all well and good, and yes, it's super fun, and there's lots of stuff to talk about there, but sometimes you just need to get to the nitty-gritty of a film, and something that I don't think has ever been really brought up between these two films is their amazing possessions. I do think there are good things about both films in terms of possession, but when you think of possession, don't you think of one man alone in a cabin dealing with various body parts being possessed, having to hack off said body parts, having elements in his cabin attacking and mocking him, and then finally being fully possessed himself and then throwing it back and reclaiming his humanity? I do not think that you can find a better, more absorbing possession than Bruce Campbell versus the cabin, including his hand, including everything else that goes on in this film, in terms of better possession than Evil Dead 2. It just, mwah.
A lot of people get possessed in Exorcist III. The Gemini killer is working overtime. He should get, you know, a promotion as a ghostly demonic spirit. He possesses mostly senile patients of the hospital where Lieutenant Kinderman is doing his investigations. And it's kind of genius the way the plot unfolds, because it's also a police procedural, and it unfolds in a really interesting way because of the possession element. For most of the film, you don't really know who the killer is who's doing these murders in the style of the Gemini killer, and there's a lot of red herrings. There's creepy nurses. You're like, is this creepy nurse possessed? What's going on with that? There's a doctor who chain smokes and his hands shake in a weird way, and he like is just very weird, and you're like, is he the murderer? Is he in tandem with Pazuzu? Like, what is happening here?
Or is it the US health system?
Well, there you are. And let's not forget, old people, sorry to be ageist, can be quite creepy. And it's quite terrifying the way these possessed elders kind of manifest themselves in the film, you know, crawling along the ceiling, you know, sneaking to Kinderman's house in the disguise of a nurse. The fact that the elderly, especially if they're, you know, in hospital, are so invisible to the rest of society, you know, we forget about them, makes them ideal vessels for possession and to be agents of the Gemini killer's, you know, unholy deeds.
This is a really important one. This is like, we're not fucking around anymore. This is best chin. Okay, let me tell you something. Bruce Campbell has carried the horror genre on his chin from the beginning. He did not start with some Doctor Strangelove bullshit like George C. Scott. So you know what? If you love the horror genre, you love Bruce Campbell, and you love his chin, he wins best chin. Boom, nailed it.
Bruce Campbell, yes, very handsome man.
Very handsome.
He is a snack. I won't deny it. I think I've wanted to have sex with Bruce Campbell since I was 13. Sorry, that's not right. He's very handsome, and it's very confusing when you're very young and you're like, wow, this man is making me feel stirred in ways I've never known. Not saying he's not handsome, not saying his bum chin is ineffective. However, in terms of the movies we're talking about, the movies, I'm not talking about the whole horror genre, just the sequels. In The Exorcist III, here is how George C. Scott's bum chin works for him. Perhaps not as pronounced as Bruce Campbell's much younger bum chin. However, you can see when you see George C. Scott as Lieutenant Kinderman in Exorcist III, he is a man who is nearing the end of his career. He is burnt out. He's constantly, it seems, on the verge of some sort of cardiac event. He is screaming. He is emotionally being pushed to the edge. He is decrepit. He is aged.
Jesus Christ.
And I feel George C. Scott's cleft chin, if Bruce Campbell's cleft chin is like a sexy comma, a sex comma in his face, George C. Scott's is like a dimple of despair. And that's acting, folks. It's called acting. All right, in summation, Exorcist III, most interesting mythology, both within and without the film. Possession in Exorcist III, just very meaningful and emotionally resonant possession that makes you think about the nature of existential dread. Also, Fabio plays an angel. I didn't even mention this to any of you. Fabio plays an angel, and that is a huge oversight on my part. It has nothing to do with our categories. Finally, cleft chin. George C. Scott's cleft chin is the best actor I've frankly seen in the 70s. Like, sorry, Robert De Niro. Like, that chin outacts you. In closing, Exorcist III, definitely the most worthy sequel in the horror genre of all time, forevermore.
I don't know, they're both great films. They're actually both terrific films. I love Evil Dead. I love its wackiness. I love its kind of FU in the face of everything, and the way it kind of redefined the genre in so many different ways, and the way it created new avenues into things. Its inventiveness out of necessity, and I think it's a wonderful film. And yeah, I return to it as one of the best horror sequels, but also one of the best film sequels of all time continually. And while I think The Exorcist III is a great film and a great sequel, I just really want to sit on Bruce Campbell's chin.
Me too.
Yeah. Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you for watching this segment of Versus on RUE MORGUE TV.
Please like this video, please subscribe to RUE MORGUE TV, and please tell us what you think in the comments. Did Allison win? Did I win? Did we win different segments? Just tell us in the comments.
I won. I needed to.
Your smile is so sweet, but your eyes are so scary.